Welcome to the Cap Planner podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of private capital markets. Whether you're new to private market investing or a seasoned professional, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping the industry. Featuring expert guests and deep discussions, Cap Planner is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired. Hi, Jody.
Hi, Morgan.
We are introducing a new format for the Cap Planner podcast for when we have guests, doing a little bit of a market update, a recap on what's going on the Thielander side, and then a formal introduction to the guests that will be joining us.
I think that's a good idea because we have so much going on, and I think getting it out like in real time is really fun because we're on the move and we have reporters coming inbound and all kinds of webinars and topics that are so timely for the market. So let's roll.
Totally. Well, I want to talk about one thing that came up on a consulting call this week. It's a private company. They're headquartered out of New York, and they have a team on the East Coast, but then they also have one of the questions. So when we do a consulting project for a private company, for example, especially on the executive side, we have a product called pay plans, which cover the staff side, but executives, we never match to a pay plan. The executives are done
Right, and you mean by an
by one.
executive, I would say that's a chief or a VP. I don't mind matching from a pay plan, a director level down, but I think
Yeah.
for a chief and VP, those we don't even have job descriptions because those roles are so unique inside of each company that you can somewhat match like, a science person to another science person at a chief level, but overall, there's not like a pay plan for them.
Right. And for somebody who doesn't know what a pay plan is, if you work for any type of organization or company, it is a total cash and, in our case, an equity range. So that if you have somebody who's an entry level employee, it's going to say, okay, well, this person could make anywhere from $40,000 to $70,000, and where somebody falls on that range depends on the compensation philosophy. It depends on who you are, how important you are to the organization. But at J. Theater Consulting, we help companies and investment firms put the infrastructure in place. And kind of back to the question that came up on the call with the client is they wanted to know how New York, how region played
Right.
into the compensation,
Yeah.
which comes
And they're
up
based in New
weekly.
York overall.
Yeah. So Jody, you want to talk about what the reaction for the client was when we pulled up the data?
Well, when we looked at New York versus the West Coast, like San Francisco and other hotspots, and this is the way it always is. So, for a couple of jobs, New York was higher. And then for a couple of jobs, New York was lower. And it just showed that there is no consistency with location. And I think they were surprised because everybody wants to believe that their location is I had this call yesterday. I have a colleague who's a chief medical officer and she's got an offer. She's got a couple of offers and she wanted to know about the premium for being in the Bay Area. And I'm like, there is no premium for being in the Bay Area. The
Yeah.
premium is for you being in a top role. So very important. And actually, that's a good segue because I don't want to take up too much crazy time here on all of this. We have had some inbound or with our PR team talking to reporters at some, very premier magazines, Fortune, Forbes, and we have some interviews coming up. So I think that's going to be great to talk to them, sort of set a tone for what's going on across bonuses and salary increases, as well as gender, and also talking about what's happening just across the private markets in general.
Yes. And we'll put a link into this episode because the best way to stay up to date with all of the media that comes out of J. Theater Consulting is either by following the LinkedIn page or signing up for newsletters because we post everything there. But talking about region, so Jody and I have discussed, I'm based in St. Louis and Jody's in Miami. And today we have a really exciting guest. If you are at all local to the St. Louis region, then you have driven by the Vault Luxury Resale, which is a store on Brentwood Boulevard. And as Laura told us, she's second generation. Her mom, Sue, started the business more than 40 years ago. And she tells us what drove her mom to start the business, how she's kind of a born entrepreneur, what it's like to work with her sister and her mother. And then really what the buying process is like and what they look for. So, Jody, did I miss anything?
No, just really that whole, she uses the word, they're really hustlers and they're a vintage of their own and that they've developed this business generationally and they've stayed current and relevant in their own unique way, which we have a lot of respect for. I try to do the
Totally.
same thing myself, actually.
Yeah. Laura,
Hi,
I
Laura.
personally am
Happy to be here.
so thrilled. I'm, like, beyond excited because I am a client and such a fan of you and your family and the business you run, and I actually made sure that the sweater I wore today
You bought
was
at the
Comme des
the
vault.
garçons.
yes,
I
I
completely.
have
love it.
purses from St. Louis, but I don't have, more I'm less on the clothing side, more on the vault purse side,
Right,
so
right, right.
well, Laura, it's so interesting to have you on because, as you well know, Morgan is my daughter, and we have this family business. So there's a couple of angles to talk about today. One is the family legacy, and you work with your mom and a whole group of you.
Right,
So
right.
maybe you can fill us in on that, and then we can talk about a little bit, the vault business. And we just had
Sure.
Julie Wainwright on, so everyone's in.
I know, one of my absolute idols.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us everything. Give us the
Love and
tea.
appreciate everything about her and what they accomplished. Okay, so a lot to tell. So Diana Ford is my sister, and I'm Laura Maurice. Diana and I are second generation resellers. My mother started it almost 40 years ago, actually, but is still very much involved in the business on a daily basis. Our business, my God, has evolved in the last 40 years. We were in business and we have a staff of 25. I try to tell people before the internet.
Alright, so were you
So
always brick and mortar, or what was the business when your mom started it?
we were always brick and mortar. From the beginning, we started in like a 400 square foot space. And that's when my mother started it. I was in high school. She got her little tiny space, not actually too far from here, and got a rack of clothes that she mustered up from her closet, our closets, friends' closets, and she piled the rack of clothes so tightly on this rack and then put it in a back room and then took the door so it was just like this. All you could see was what you thought was a packed back room.
Right,
And
so she gave you the illusion of more when it was really something good for her.
from the beginning, always had people wanting more, thinking that there was more, had always had that sense of the abundance. And
That's
from a
funny. That
very
mindset though, because well, I mean, Morgan, you know that the abundant mindset, but my grandmother used to talk about when I would be dating or anything, along those lines, she would always say, "It's good to leave them wanting a little more." So
right,
that was we
right.
didn't all these things that now we put like language around are really sort of vintagey things that are generational.
Sure, sure. And we always in our business, she taught us from a very early age, let them know we have hundreds of items coming in daily. Even when we didn't, we were telling people, we have hundreds of items coming in daily. Look at that back room. And believe me, they started coming in every day, and then they would start bringing their own items every day. And we
Right.
were strictly consignment back in the day. We switched over to buy outright, I guess 15 years ago.
Okay, so that means you used to just take it and then sell it and give people a commission, and now you buy it outright and then you're
Mhm.
done.
Exactly. It has made us, we buy with laser focus. It really does change the mindset when you go from consignment to you buy it, you own it. All of your skin is in the game, and we got really good fast at that. And the amount of things that would be in the double D's, I call them, discounted and donated,
Right.
became really slight, really fast because we knew we had to buy with laser focus.
So you had to really focus on what people were looking at. And also, you can kind of tell what's going on with the market because you're really the one at the forefront of seeing what people are A, buying, and then also B,
Right.
what they're selling.
Oh, it's funny, we see all of the trends on every level. Even down to Ozempic now. Our large and extra large sizes are so slight right now because so many people are
Oh,
losing
weight.
weight. it's kind of crazy. So we see a lot of those trends. I see activewear and casual wear after COVID just rose to the top. Aloe and Lulu are one of our highest categories.
Yeah, what else? What other brands are what's always hot?
Well, Chanel, Hermes, Gucci, Louis Vuitton.
Yeah,
I mean, the regulars.
yeah.
We're in the Midwest. Our clients can't get enough of those big LVs and Gs, and
See, that's
locally people.
international language, LVGs, right?
It does. It does. Quieter luxury, not as much
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, but that could shift.
I think there's a room for both. I mean, right, Morgan, you're more of an example of that because you tend to go for the quieter, but you still
Yeah.
love a LV or a Gooch.
Oh,
One of
sure. Yeah.
my the you had a I will never forget this. I mean, every time I go in and I sit in my car beforehand and it's like, "Okay, we're not shopping. We're not shopping and we're not looking."
Best
And I
laid plans.
Right, and the funny I mean, I really so for somebody who doesn't live in St. Louis or does not have access to the vault, first of all, everything's online, and I think that's been a
Yeah.
very right, big change that's happened for you all, but
Right.
when you walk into the store, you have the buying counter, and I think this is something that's really unique about your business is that you put your name down, you bring your items, and then you can take a lap around the store, which is such a great model because, of course, the second you walk down into the whole clothing area, it's just gangbusters and it's all done by
Yeah.
size. And I kid you not, there was a jacket one time where it's like it sticks in my mind, but I could not bring myself to spend the money on it. It was an LV bomber jacket.
Oh,
And it
yeah,
was like
yeah, I remember.
it was two-tone colors. It was like a brown wool, and then it had the lighter LV, and I was standing there, and I was fully in my workout clothes, and I was like, "I want this." I
Yeah.
would give
I
a
think you even
finger.
FaceTimed me from there, Morgan. I remember seeing this, and I wanted to tell you to buy it,
I
but
need
I think
this.
you hadn't done your backyard yet, which you needed the money, so
Right, right.
Like, I
Morgan's
cannot.
still at that house or wear stage. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. And so
seriously.
how is it what's the family dynamic like? I mean, everyone always asks Morgan, what's it like to work for your mother? So what's it like to work for your mother and with your sister? Even you've doubled down here.
Yeah, wow. Is this li is will this be shared?
We can always
No.
edit it out if you say something that you regret.
Kidding. No, it's funny, there's a lot to that. It's absolutely a dream to work with the people you love. And you know what? We make it work. We all stay in our own lane, and I think that's the most important thing, is that Diana does the marketing and events, which we do a ton of, and that is a full-time job, and her office is tucked away from all the people. I'm the head buyer, the main buyer. So I'm with people all day and I do the buying and I kind of do that final sale, I do that final say on, what comes in the store, what we're spending our money on. We don't, I'd like to think we have an endless supply of money per day, but I, you know, because we're a non-appointment operation animal here, I could buy 3 Gucci's in one day or an Hermes collection could come in and it could be 40, 50 pieces, which has happened. And I would be spending $100,000 that I would.
And so
Um,
those collections come you don't you're not limited to just St. Louis. You buy these things from all over.
People literally fly in and drive in to sell to us because they know that if it's something that we want and that is marketable for us and that we know that we can sell, we will buy it on the spot. It is not consignment. There is no waiting. And that's particularly why our in-home closet buy business is so big. It's big here, Chicago, Nashville. We've been to LA. If I told you whose closet we did in LA, you'd flip, but it was all custom Gucci Tom Ford pieces.
So now where's all
Um,
Jody
that? I know.
that's been years and years ago.
Oh,
Jody's
I
like,
know.
"If you have that right now, I'm booking a plane
I'm gonna
ticket
have
for
to get off
Miami."
this
Right,
podcast and go look online. If my eyes
right,
shift over, I was like, "Oh, my
right.
favorite
We have a
Well,
name."
ton of
those
business
are
in Nashville that we do, closets in Nashville. We work with a lot of celebrities. One of our biggest things that we've always stayed true to is we do not kiss and tell. And to be honest with you, we've also learned you cannot monetize something based on who had it, and unless it's a Babe Ruth baseball card.
Right.
It's just
That for our
doesn't.
business is very similar in that we deal in confidentiality, right? When we work with both companies and investment firms on all aspects of their compensation, we don't kiss and tell. And it comes up all
Right.
the time that people are always asking us for participant lists. Morgan, you want to add to this?
I mean, it's so true because when people one of the things for us is that when people give us their comp data, essentially from participating in a survey, is that they're working with us because they know that A, the data will never leave Thielander, and B,
Right.
that we will never discuss whether they've been a client or not, period, unless we
Right.
have come to them and said, somebody's looking for a referral. Are you okay if we give them your
Giving a
name?
reference, right?
Right,
Sure.
exactly. And then part of that
Same.
too is my question then for you leading on to it is so you've been in phenomenal closets. You have inventory that's and I've also seen even from following your social media accounts about how many older pieces, I guess vintage pieces now are
Mhm.
obviously so popular. And then so
Right.
my question is how did your mom come up with the idea for this? Obviously, she's innovative and an entrepreneur, and I've heard bits and pieces of the story from you, but from somebody who does not know your mom, does not know Sue, what could you tell us for how she had the idea?
Oh, wow. So, she was literally born with the entrepreneurial spirit. You know what? My father was an iron worker, so work was always kind of here and there for him. So, right when they were married, she knew she had to hustle, and she did a lot of different things. She was a beautician. Back in the day, she was always giving home perms. The smell of perm in our house was crazy. She went from that to working in a mortuary doing dead people's hair. The
Why
her
did you expect
boss.
that one, Laura? Points
Yeah,
for
right? So it's getting better and better. So her boss back in the day, this was long before the Me Too movement, used to chase her around the table, all hours of the night, trying to hit on her. And it used to drive her nuts, but she needed to work.
it's
So
money.
she
Yeah.
had to deal with that. Women had to deal with that back then. She was down in the basement one time doing a dead person's hair, and she overheard the boss getting a bid from a painter to paint the mortuary. And she walked upstairs and she said, "Who was that?" And he said, "Oh, it's a bid to paint the mortuary, huge mortuary." And she said, "Well, what is he going to charge you?" And he said, $10,000. And she said, "I'll do it for 4."
Do it. Yeah.
And she said, "And by the way, I quit." And the next day, she got her friend, and she and her friend painted the mortuary, started another business called A Woman's Touch, which was painting, wallpapering, and decorating business. But through all of that, we always thrifted. We were always shopping at Goodwill and Salvation Army, and my mother's sister tragically passed away, and her daughter came to live with us. And now my mom had 3 daughters who loved fashion and who all went to private school, but she had to go out and make a lot of money. And we always did it. It used to drive me nuts. I would tell my mom, "Why do you tell everybody everything we have is used?"
It's so true. I mean, I grew up in Mill Valley, which is a suburb 20 minutes north of San Francisco, and my mom always shopped secondhand, not like it
Mhm.
I was always high end, first of all, it was always
Right,
high end.
right,
Also, she had a really good, not I think really good is actually an understatement, always played the high-low game, and that
right.
could come in a lot of different forms, but I used to take her things that she was done with, and I would go to the consignment store, and I would drop them off, and I would get the check, and that was part of the money that I got to use, but similar to you is the money that
Right.
you sold, you had more runway or when you would leave it at in-house at the store and purchase what they had.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a game from the beginning that we loved to play. Will we do store credit? Will we take the check? Will we take the money and run? My mother was very honest early on with any stores that we would shop often and said, "I'm going to do this someday." And actually, there was a really lovely woman here in Clayton that had a store, and it was a tiny store long, long many years ago, and Sue said, I want to do this. Can I come work for you and learn?" And she did it for a week.
Couldn't
And then
believe
she
it.
knew,
That
she
was
goes, "I
enough.
can do this, but I can do it better." And
Yeah.
just because people want resale and thrift doesn't mean they don't want resale and thrift Chanel and Louis and Gucci. It's there's so much more to do. And 40 years ago, there wasn't as much high end as like now. And we started with an organization early on, and there were a handful of members called the National Resale and Thrift Professionals. And we stayed with them, and to this day, it's still an operation, and there are over 500 members. We have traveled, we've worked with stores in many other cities and helped them learn to do what we've done in our industry. It's very tight knit. We love helping each other. What we all do is so niche that it's really, really nice to work with your peers. Matter of fact, there's a men's store here in St. Louis, and we just helped their buyers learn to buy better. They
Right.
would come in,
Did
they
you
would
ever
stand at the counter and tell these guys, "This is what I want for this, and this is," and I said, "No, that's not the way we do things." Like Morgan said, you put your name down and you walk around the store. It gives you an opportunity to buy something and make us money. And you don't, we're in charge here. It's our counter, and we kind of, she knows how we do things.
I've been there enough to see. Did you ever think about raising outside capital? Obviously, and we were having this as we started the podcast, but in our role, let's say you decided, okay, we're going to raise $15 million or
Right.
$30 million. We want to have a global presence, or we want to be in a, and have a more of an online. We have to invest in technology, because I think this is the difference between you and
Right.
others, is that you're really not a tech company. You really are a
Yep.
resale and thrift. But if you wanted to move into that lane of being more of a tech company and having the platform and incorporating AI, that's where you would raise capital. And we at Thielander would help you look at the mix between cash and equity, you all as founders. And then if you were
Hmm.
hiring a team, what would that look like? And we've done that obviously for many companies, but that's how we work with a private company, just to answer your question. So would you ever think of doing that, or what's on the horizon for you?
It's funny. We've talked a lot about it, obviously, over the years. I think that this particular business is kind of an enigma in that I think when you get really big, you lose that quality control. What we do is it's not a black and white business. Our business is different every day, all day. It is like Christmas every day. You literally never know what's coming through the door. Yes, I could find a team of seasoned buyers, but once it's out of our fingertips, I I
Yeah.
I I just don't think that we have that control, and with a lot I've seen it with a lot of big online resellers. I feel like if we hit a medium spot, and we're not there yet, I believe, that will be fine and great for us.
You still haven't reached the horizon yet, like, you have growth potential.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. But
I
I
understand
think
that.
in our particular business, when you're overgrown and you're dealing with that amount of product and reviews and the mental gymnastics of the deal with
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of people, um, and quite frankly, I like the smaller situation that we have. I deal with a lot of clients in their closets that say, "I like what you do because everything happens right now." And right now is usually a 20 to 25-minute span. I'm not a person that's working for a bigger company that has been hired to come to your closet and gather the things that I think that they will want, and then next week, I'm still waiting to hear about what was the outcome, what were those offers, and then a month later, I'm getting pants back that I never wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
What we do happens in real time, and frankly, I think it's because we're smaller, and I think we have that quality control.
Yeah. I definitely, I mean, it makes sense. It's not especially in the luxury market with it. I especially, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the high end handbags and the things that you're selling and that are coming in, it's really where okay, well, here's my first question kind of with this is A, how do you make sure all of those things are real? Is it that you're, because I'm sure there's still people who have very exquisite closets and could have a couple of
Mhm.
things in there that might not be 100% real. So do you
Absolutely.
authenticate everything too?
So that's the most important thing in our business is authenticity. We have 100% money back guarantee. And here's the thing, there are holes in every business, but in our business, that's the worst thing that we can do is sell somebody a fake handbag. We use AI technology. We were the first people to use AI technology, Entropy. They came to us many, many years ago. Now,
Before it was
5
even, you mentioned this before it was even really a thing.
before it was a thing, they approached us and they were like, "Hey, we have this microscopic lens that authenticates bags. We would like for you guys to sort of be our first uh, test market." And we were like, "Sure." And now everyone uses it. But
Yeah.
we also have had the luxury and the schooling of doing it for 40 years and
Yeah,
looking
you
at
know, and you're
stitching.
and like you
And
said,
we
you're
know.
still hands-on. So what
Right.
happens next? Is your mom still involved every day?
My mom is involved probably 4 to 5 days a week, and we're
Yeah.
open 6 days a week, so she's heavily involved.
That's already bringing up the rear here, or what's happening?
That's a good question, but Sue is so involved, sometimes I'll call her and say, "How much money do we have in the account?" Because, she really does handle the money piece of it. And if we're on a roll on a day, because again, it's like Christmas every day. You never know what's coming through the door. I'm going to say, we spent 40 grand today. So, and sometimes
Right,
we got
I
to
can't imagine.
slow it
It's
up.
yeah. Was there ever a
Yeah.
time where you were scared? We sort of, you talk about the abundance, but was there ever a time where you had to sort of sit back and say, "Okay, we bought all this, but now nothing's really moving."
Oh, I love this question. I had a friend that was an accountant that wanted to start a resale shop and I said, absolutely not. We have built this business on irresponsible spending, period. Buy it now, pray to God, and worry about that later. And I said, you will fail miserably. You're a
Yeah.
bean counter. You cannot do this. And Sue will always say when I call, buy it, we'll think about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my last question is, and Morgan, you can chime in here. Were you always this positive, Laura? Was this something that you've just this has been your wiring, your DNA? Like we had a coach on who talked about a little bit of the anxiety and the scarcity mentality versus the
Right.
abundance. And Morgan could appreciate because some nights she goes to sleep worried. And me, I pretty much go to sleep excited to get up for the next day because I can't wait. And I've also run a business and at times, put my tail on the line a little bit, but I knew fundamentally that what we did and how we did it was so special that it was
Sure.
impossible for us not to stay in business. So I think you and I have more in common, but would love to hear from you.
It's funny because I have a little bit of both actually, and I lay awake worrying at night. We have to put our money where our mouth is. We sign up for a lot of things and events and situations where we have to bring it. And about a year ago, we were the headliner for a huge event at Belmead Country Club in Nashville, and their last headliner the year before that was like Jason Wu, but they wanted to go green and they wanted to be more of that mentality. And knowing that we were going to be in front of hundreds or maybe thousands of people, we had to make sure we had stock and brought the Chanel and the Hermes and the Birkins and so yeah, so I'm not usually awakened by scarcity, but in those situations, and it's funny because it always comes. It always works out.
Yeah.
It
You
just
hear that,
does. I
Morgan?
just
It
don't.
always works out. That's a
Look,
good lesson.
I
I
mean, it
have I
sounds simple, but it does.
It's really, I think, well, it's a double-edged sword because there were a lot of years when my mom was running, so we collect all of our data in-house, right? We run compensation surveys. And there were a lot of years when my mom would publish a report and immediately, people would be buying. And then when we switched from running the surveys on an annual cycle to having them open year round, you kind of lost that sense of urgency, which the
Right,
market liked because they were like, I'm on my own timeline now. I'm not backed into this essentially artificial deadline that really might not line up with where my business is or where my investment firm is at the moment. But then you kinda had to think to yourself, okay, well, talking about like what your sister does on the marketing side, how do you really position yourself and then similarly educate people for why you're different? And that's the
right.
part where, especially in the way that technology has evolved now, how people find you, how people work with you, I think that's really what you're talking about, getting that between the line of where you are now as an organization of 25 people that's still very much a family business to getting
Yeah,
to
but
that
that's
Right.
next
still a lot
stage.
of payroll. 25 people is no shit in terms of payroll, I can understand, and that in the
It is.
inventory and
And
paying the
and ma
rent for your store,
many
you're
s
about real
yeah,
money.
many salaried employees, one of which has been with us 25 years. We bought our building, right after COVID, which was kind of nail biting, but
Yep.
we also knew as a company, we need to invest, and that's the cost of doing business, is owning our building. And
Yeah.
frankly, from a ego standpoint, it's like I don't want to rent. I want to play with the big dogs, and I want to own an entire block in Brentwood. And so and honestly, I think people want to do business. Well, my mother always said nobody wants to do business with a loser.
Well, on
And
that note, Laura, I would say that you are anything but a loser in your family. And it's so inspiring because it really, this whole conversation has evolved, to understand both your range as well as
Mhm.
your depth. And we have a
Yeah,
lot of respect for that because that's sort of what Morgan and I and our team have aspired to. All the while, like you said, having someone on your payroll and being responsible for them for 25 years shows
right,
the consistency. So, any way people come at you, not only are you growing, but you are so stable. And I think that part
right.
really goes to the credibility of your merchandise and the whole industry that you represent. So we thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to get online and go shopping. That's one of my favorite things to do. And the nice thing is, I have feet on the ground in St. Louis, so Morgan can run in
I
and
cannot wait. I know exactly what next time you come in, you definitely want to. And I would leave you with one last thing. You know,
tell us.
Sue from the very get-go beginning was like, we're gonna do this. This is our business, but we're always gonna give back. And something that we do, and I don't even know if Morgan knows about it, we have a buy one, gift one program. For every single solitary handbag that we sell, we gift one to a woman in need, a woman in transition, a woman coming out of sexual trafficking, a woman coming out of human trafficking, out of prison. We have gifted hundreds of handbags to women, and we always have an inspirational note in them, along with a bunch of gift items. And we've given over $1 million back to our St. Louis community through St. Louis Fashion Fund in just the past 10 years. And I
Wow.
think that is a lot of the reason, for our success as well, I personally believe.
I just finished reading the Happiness Files, and there was a
Uh-huh.
whole chapter in the book that talked about the importance of giving back. And
Yep.
one of the first part of the chapters was give back and then first of all, don't tell anybody. Like, if you tell
Right.
people, like, you just do it and then you can talk about it after, but you do it for all the right
Right.
reason. And there's so much data that's
100%.
out for how meaningful it is, but especially something like a handbag, like, you don't really think it's something where it could bring confidence to somebody, but Jody talks about this all the
Sure.
time, getting on stage, like, how you show up, and so much of that is
Mhm.
how you're dressed and how your hair
Right.
looks and how you're put together, like, the whole deal of it, and really, I think so much of that can start with a handbag or a good pair of shoes where you're like,
It
"I feel good."
absolutely. Yeah,
And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be,
absolutely.
right to your point is that it doesn't have to be new, and I love that high-low game, and you
Sure.
do it however you can, and the fact that you contribute to the community and you're part of the community, I just love that,
Yeah,
and big big
yeah.
congratulations to all the generations, and we're extremely glad to have had you on today, and thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you both so much. My pleasure.